Hey everyone, welcome to the HASHR8 Podcast. I'm the Bitcoin Broski, and on the show today, I am joined by a repeat guest. Actually, he's one of our first guests on the show. He's been back since, and we're happy to have him on again today. JP Baric, founder and CEO of Mining Store. JP, welcome, buddy.
Thanks for having me on. Glad to be here again.
Anytime. So it's been a little while since we talked. The halving has occurred. There was the sideways action in Bitcoin for months on end, it seemed like, and now life is good, money is flowing. Bitcoin is almost at 12K. What have you been up to in the last 3 months, man?
Honestly, the last 3 months have just gone by so fast. We have been building. We worked on launching this basic managed service program where we work with capital partners or people that have their own power sites, their own power generation. And we come in and act as the operator for that site, helping them come into the industry, aligning our incentives and taking a management fee so that we're no longer, upcharging the power and selling it for a premium, but instead saying, how do we ensure that your mine's going to have a long lifespan and that we're going to be able to help you build up hash rate now, but then when we see hash rate in the future have a higher value, we're going to help you exit that hash rate in the next 2 years.
When you say exit the hash rate, how do you mean?
So just selling it off. And I think the way I view hash rate is a lot of people view, building their mining facilities and then deploying and running them and not necessarily exiting and liquidating. I view hash rate as almost like something you want to be buying and selling all the time. You want to be building it, but you also want to be liquidating at a premium if you can.
Sure.
So we're working on building those channels where we're able to liquidate hash rate at a premium above, basically above the retail market or the normal Bitcoin mining market, and working on exiting our position as in 2021, 2022, when we believe it's going to be overvalued. Because one of the hardest things about mining Bitcoin is the timing, and if you are off with your timing, it can be the difference between returning 200% to your investors or returning 60% or 20%. So that's something we're focused on, and over the years we've been able to see those cycles and trends, and so we're building the models and the on and off ramps to ensure that we can sell and buy hash rate more efficiently.
So now, when you're talking about the off ramps of hash rate and liquidating, are you just talking about selling machines and kind of getting out of it? Or are you talking about getting the hash rate into different kind of derivatives products or futures or forwards that can elongate the profitability span of those?
Yeah, so we have two avenues you could say where we liquidate hash rate. One is on the institutional level where it's being able to lock in the profitability for a longer period of time, almost like a PPA. It's one thing we're working on, to be able to offload into these big capital partners who would take the other side of hash rate or take some of that risk off of you. And then the second one is through a retail mechanism, and it's still selling physical machines, but it has a little twist to it. So that's what we're working on there, and trying to lower the barrier of entry to get into the space and to liquidate hash rate for larger miners.
So obviously not cloud mining, because there are actual machines associated with this, right? So Are you able to share how that program works for retail, or is it too soon?
Not yet.
Okay.
Still
all right.
in development, still getting past the lawyers, but yeah, it's been in the works for at least a year now, and it's exciting to get it out in probably the next 6 months. So.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Well, that's exciting. I mean, I think that the big argument that people have had for the longest time, right, is that mining is only for the big guys, so you've got a ton of people who I'm sure would love to be able to support Bitcoin's network, but just, don't have 100K laying around. So,
and that's one of the biggest problems we see at the mining store, where, as a consumer facing brand, is we have all these people come in, they want to buy one machine, they want to buy $2,000 worth of a machine, and we just can't service them. The way, most co-location operators function, it's very hard to service 1 and 2 clients, especially when you're only making money off the power. So those customers, end up getting pushed to the side, just in the name of the game. So we believe that if you build the right systems in place and you have everything automated really well, you'll be able to service those customers at scale.
Absolutely. So, I mean, is there considerable demand for people that are looking to just buy one machine? Is that something that you guys are seeing
over
now?
the past month? We've probably gotten over 1,000 requests for one machine. So, I mean, it's not necessarily considerable demand, it's just 1,000 machines, but for us, the difference is we're able to liquidate that hash rate maybe at a 30 or 40% premium compared to on the normal Bitcoin market, where you only be able to sell at a 5% in the, in the normal broker sphere.
Sure. Well, and I mean, for a facility, I mean, that's a considerable amount of power consumption, right? 1,000 machines is no small amount. Fantastic. I'm excited to see that come to fruition. That's awesome. That's obviously, I think a big thing that's needed in the space is the ability to service those. I hate to call them little guys because everyone matters, right? And it would be awesome to see them get to mine and get to mine profitably, and to enjoy the upside of mining as well. Because it seems like, and I mean, look, we have a podcast, so I have a pretty good gauge of when interest, comes to mining and when it wanes, and it seems like, I mean, obviously when the price is going up, everyone wants to figure out how they can get into mining. And it's just, they're so quick to be put off because they realize pretty quickly that there's not really a way for them to, right? So this is awesome. So you said in the next 6 months, you guys are looking to roll this out.
Correct. Next 6 months. And it'll actually be underneath like a completely different brand. So won't be underneath the Mining Store brand, but working on simplifying that brand, focusing on really going after that managed service program. And, then this consumer route is another good play we're working on, which is fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So as far as the mining itself right now, I mean, you guys have your operation in the Midwest, and it's mostly wind? Is that right?
Yeah, mostly wind power out here in Iowa, where we have the facility. It's a decent site. When I say decent, I mean the power price is mid-tier. And actually one of the things we've been finding out that we work with this new power company that helps, or I guess you would call them like energy brokers, and they help find energy. And one of the things that I didn't know before this, but after looking for power for the past almost 7 years of my life, I was up in Grant County. They just dismissed the lawsuit for moving the power rates up for cryptocurrency miners. A federal judge just dismissed that. That was a huge issue there. We actually still have some application in the queue. And then we were in the Dalles, Oregon before, and across all these states, it's really hard to get below that 4-cent power rate. And I didn't realize this, but it's because the federal government actually has, and there's rules and subsidies that make it very hard for, really rules and tariffs make it very hard for utilities to be able to provide power less than 4 cents. And that is why it's kind of a base rate here in America. If you're looking at facilities, most of them built between 2016 and I would say 2019, we're at 4 cents, or maybe a little bit less. But now we're seeing with ERCOT market, people going to Texas, and upstate New York, that's starting to show some signs of wear and tear. But those markets are where we're targeting for our next deployment.
Interesting. Well, that's great. I mean, the report that came out from BitUda said that about 50% of the hash rate was in China, which would indicate that there's been, a little bit of a diaspora out of China moving to the States. So it's awesome to see more come online here and it continue to decentralize. There's been a ton of news, it seems like, over the past, 48 hours in mining. I think the biggest news of the last month or so has been the Bitmain saga, right? What the hell is going on over there? How's that impacted you guys? Like, has business been impacted markedly by this situation?
I would say yes, because when you're talking to investors and you're like, hey, we get machines in 6 months, 3 months, that's difficult to swallow. And the industry, was doing really well. And then up to COVID, that's when when I mean doing really well, the delivery time was, they were hitting schedule. It was like, wow, they can actually deliver on time. This is a miracle. And then, markets started to pick up, COVID happened, it affected supply chains. Now this coup is happening. I'm excited to see what WhatsMiner really can do in this time to grow their market share. I think they have a great product and they've been able to, push out machines. So it'll be interesting to see, what their quarterly returns are, or profits when they post them.
Are they still putting out machines? I mean, they're sold out right now as well.
They're sold out,
right?
but
yeah,
they're not shutting down those manufacturing lines, even if they're selling.
Of course. Yeah, of course. And I mean, this is a great opportunity for them. And I mean, even if all things end up working out with McCree and Jihan, it sounds like now the best case scenario is that it'll end in 2 different companies. which will be very interesting. I mean, there was the high failure rate with the S17s, and following that up with this. I mean, God, it's like what's miners being served this on a silver platter. So,
Yeah,
and I mean, look, they're a great company to work with. I can't take anything away from that. So it's not like they just happened into this. They've worked very hard to put themselves in a position to be able to capitalize on this. So it's cool to see it actually working out. And I think everyone that I've talked to is excited for it, because in the back of their mind, and always it's a thought that Bitcoin or Bitmain is like this evil empire almost. Like everyone enjoys using their products, but in the back of your mind, you're like, some way they're probably screwing me. I'm just not sure how.
they are.
I said it. You didn't say it, right? But it's a very interesting situation. How do you think? Do you think we'll see a resolution on this in the next couple of months?
I mean, I hope so. We have customers who are just waiting for their S19 Pros and waiting for their S19s. But, other than just the selfish reason of, waiting for new machines to come, I mean, there's just a lot of money to be made. I think both co-founders will, realize and understand that if they're able to come to some sort of an agreement, that it's better to, to keep running the ship and keep underneath the Bitmain brand. Because with a mining company, the competition is so much overhead, it's going to eat into your profit margin. And Bitmain had a lead. They were 80%, probably you could say, the monopoly in the space for the past, since the S9, maybe 5-6 years now.
Mm-hmm.
So like once they launched that product, it was no stepping back. But what's miner put out some really good stuff with the M30s, and now I think they're on the M33s, right? Like
32s.
32s.
Yeah.
With their 1 year warranty, like they're really pushing the space. They're like, we're gonna offer 1 year. We're like, what?
Yeah. And they've got their own firmware now, right? So before you had if there was firmware, it would void that. And now you've got the 1 year warranty with the What's Miner firmware that they're releasing, which is awesome to think you can crank that past what it's able to be used at.
Yeah. And I think that's going to be huge for the space. I'm excited to see if there's any North American mining companies that are going to build their own chips. Chris DeLay has been talking about it for a while, but like I don't really know much about it. I'm excited to see who's going to build it. I know for a fact that in the next 5 years there will be like another SBI that will try to come in and build chips at scale. We're already seeing it, and it might be Intel, it might be one of the big banks, but there's just a huge opportunity to sell hardware, which I hope increases the validity of the market, because
Sure.
One of the hardest things is getting lenders to lend against these assets, and it's starting to come up. People are starting to lend against the new Bitcoin miners, but the asset-backed security world still looks like Bitcoin miners are a joke and we'll never lend against it. But we're getting there. Give it a couple more years.
Maybe I was gonna say. Oh yeah, a couple more years, align the financial incentives with the banks a little bit more. Everyone will be eager to get a piece of that. I mean, yeah, the DeFi hype that's going on right now, and all of the value that's locked in those coins. I mean, look, shit coins, whatever you want to call them. I think that is starting to pique the interest of banks, because that's a lot of money, and it's showing that there's real use case for some of these things, and people have an interest in like earning interest again, like when banks used to do that. So I think that this may actually bring banks back in, and Bitcoin mining, like you said. I mean, when it comes to infrastructure, it's not a sexy play for a lot of investors. Like they're not going to be banking on those big returns and potential, massive IPOs within, 5 to 10 years in most cases. But the people who are smart and are getting in now, I mean, we were talking about this a little before the show, but I mean, just look at how big AWS is. Look at how big these other compute providers are, right? I know that there's a lot of people who want to say that Bitcoin mining is high performance computing. I don't believe that. I don't subscribe to that thought, but hash rate is compute, and there are correlations to be drawn. You had alluded to kind of a thought that you had about that. So as a company, what are you guys, as you're looking forward to the next 5 years or so, and how hash rate relates to compute? What are your thoughts?
Well, the way we look at, I guess, Bitcoin hash rate today is that it's a great security to build a business on, but it isn't necessarily going to be that high revenue or that high profit margin business that you're able to capture a lot of value in. So we're looking at video transcoding and other means to basically compete with these AWS providers, with these marketplaces. Whenever you get a video streamed to your Netflix account, a computer has to physically take the software, decode it, transcode it, and provide it to you at the bit rate that you want, or the 4K or 1080p. Right. And with that growing, and with the pandemic pushing this, this video transcoding problem, we just haven't been able to keep up on the computing side. So there's a lot of opportunity for modular computing and at scale, and doing it on not necessarily the cheap, but on the discount. Like Bitcoin miners are used to building out facilities for $100,000 a megawatt compared to Google with $1 million per megawatt, and still have the same type of uptime, same type of performance. And being able to rely on a network instead of one individual allows you to not have to build in that, interoperability, so that you have the data stored on one's place, and it's very secure there. You can kind of take some, almost like you can basically compete with the big guys, because you don't have to have that the backup.
Sure. Yeah. And cost competing with AWS is a great way to go. Obviously, that's a massive part of their business. So when do you foresee this kind of coming to fruition? Is this something you're planning to get into soon? Yeah. Okay.
We're working on a couple pilot projects right now, where we'll be deploying these modular containers, everywhere from next to, a school to in the middle of nowhere, but wherever at the end of the day, wherever the population centers are. Our goal is that these are, basically shipping containers with these transcoding devices will be on schools, will be on top of apartments, will be on top of skyscrapers. At the end of the day, it doesn't require much power, and they can get the data out there. So basically, bringing the compute to the people is really nice, and really kind of just fits the motto and ethos of Bitcoin, I feel like.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's definitely the way that things are headed. We've talked about this internally. We're definitely moving towards a time when we can expect to see an era of super users when it comes to compute. Like right now, compute is something that the cost is kind of rolled into whatever service or product you're using, right? But as gaming continues to increase in popularity, as people are looking for edges in different things, whether it's in the art world or in the sciences, when it comes to needing to perfect certain things for AI ML with regards to surgeries or modeling, anything like that, there are people who are always going to be the super users of compute. And I really believe that we're going to see in the next 10 to 20 years people purchasing compute very similar to how people purchase Wi-Fi, right? Like when you started up, it was just broadband, right? You'd dial up, you'd have the crappy AOL connection, and it was what it was, right? And you just took what you could get. And then over time, you started to have options, right? You were able to purchase certain packages for your home so you could have different speeds of internet. And as we move towards a more virtual world where there's augmented reality and VR like used in real time, I think that we will see the same. I do believe that in 20 years, everyone will get a compute bill to their house, just like they get a cable bill or a Wi-Fi bill. Probably won't get a cable bill in 20 years, but it's all very similar. And having something like this, where you've got the modular unit on your building or next to your school, it just makes it that much easier.
Less latency, cheaper costs, and if you're able to create, the automation to make sure that the servers are up and running and there's less maintenance, then it's going to be huge. And you mentioned VR, and I think that's where video transcoding, will hit almost like just a logarithmic jump to another level of compared to what we're seeing now, considering how much data there will be. If people are jumping in these VR worlds now, and it's just on a screen, it's 360 around you, and that's going to need all put into whatever 4K, whatever 6K, 8K, whatever's out there now next in 10 years. That's where I see the industry really, there's a huge demand in the next 5 to 10 years coming up for video transcoding and other additional computing platforms out there.
So I'm sure a lot of the conversations you're having, people are like-minded. Are you getting into conversations with people who maybe just think this is too far-fetched, that this is, we may be 50 years out as opposed to 10?
On the video side and the transcoding side, no, it's a very easy argument to make. On the energy side of the business, the finance side of the business, that's where people don't necessarily see the potential or the future of mining. I'm get really excited about how Bitcoin miners are going to work with the grid, and how there's an opportunity to buy and sell power and use Bitcoin miners as a hedge, as a battery, and then kind of integrating other types of energy storage units or energy consumption units. I was actually just reading an interesting article about, I think there was this one university in the US that did a study on hackers basically hacking into high voltage or high usage electrical devices. And the thought process would be that you would be able to, during a hot summer month, turn these devices all on and pull more power from the grid, causing a spike in electricity rates, and then go on the markets before that and short them, or go long, and being able to make more money. So it's going to come down to how much energy can I consume, and almost in computation, it's really how many watts can you consume. And as a business, that's something that people put out. We use, we have 100 megawatts, 20 megawatts, but it's going to continue to grow. And I see it expanding from just Bitcoin mining to devices all over the world. If it's cars, if it's smart homes, being able to turn on and off and balance and create an equilibrium.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you feel about the thought that big tech could get broken up? I mean, are we looking at a world where we could see AWS get broken up in the next 5 years? You think that's a realistic possibility?
I don't think so, because like you mentioned, the nuts and bolts of how the internet works, the warehouses, the data centers, no one understands the size and scale of these. Very few people even look into that. Most people are concerned about website traffic, or the website and who owns what, or the branding on the website. But even that, you look at Amazon, they own all these different companies. They do a great job of almost like hiding it, that they're massive. And so I don't see that they're really going to get broken up and in the next 5 years. And also the reason why I don't see that is, at the end of the day, because of our competition with China. And by breaking them up, they'll become less competitive on the worldwide scale, even though they might be monopolies here, while they're fighting monopolies backed by the Chinese government, or very heavily influenced by them.
True. Yeah. And I mean, especially with the BSN that's rolling out, the blockchain services network coming out of China, that's going to build a pretty entrenched network across the world, and it'll give them easy access to a lot of the businesses that will run on AWS. So if there was any kind of breakup there, it would be, a WhatsMiner versus Bitcoin or Bitmain type of opportunity in the same sense. So it's very interesting to think about. I mean, it's exciting that, Bitcoin in this case is really, I mean, it's really almost a proof of concept for everything else, right? I mean, this thing that people have focused so much time and attention on, and has some of the smartest people in the world working on building, chipsets and ASICs and everything to support the network. Now, all of this could come to help, the world at a bigger scale when it comes to compute. So when you guys are building this out and you're looking at this product, and, it seems like you're just staring at a vast ocean of opportunities. How are you narrowing your focus on which part of the market that you wanted to, like, how did you come into video transcoding? What was it that made you focus on that?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say it's something that, we like immediately jumped into, and we're like, okay, let's do this. It's actually, thankfully, because of the brand I've been able to build, a lot of people come in and they ask for us to consult. So we'll end up consulting on these projects, and we'll be able to help them get started. So we actually rely on most of our almost like customers, you could say, to start off these smaller projects. So, if it's mining on a natural gas well, if it's transcoding, at a school, if it's running, like we did our Ethereum mining operation with the Sacramento Kings back in 2017 or 2017. Right. And that's just like another consulting project. So there's these opportunities that come to us where they allow us to gather data and insight on the market. But really at the scale of, what we're going for, it's really on the energy and finance side, and understanding how we make this space more accessible to the masses. How do we sell more hash rate or more computational power? And how do we make that process more efficient and reduce the friction in the space overall? Because we see that the markets are not robust enough, as you kind of mentioned. The one customer is just getting pushed around, and that's in my opinion, it's an opportunity to sell hash rate, as I mentioned, at a higher rate. But then at the same time, you have massive energy plants that have the same problem, where they have a 100 megawatt plant and they need to use power there. So we're talking to them as well, and looking to work with some of these larger parties to deploy on their sites and kind of going to that scale. So thankfully with mining, it doesn't take, with a great team behind me, I'm able to like direct the project and say, let me get on a call for a couple hours a week and provide the direction, and then make sure everything else is done behind that. And that's very, very helpful.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's a good position that you've put yourself in. It's awesome to see all of these things that are coming to fruition. Obviously, there's a couple of things you've talked about already that I'm excited to see. Now, the demand side seems very simple when it comes to compute, right? Everything runs on compute, so it's logical that there's going to be demand for it. However, a lot of crypto operations that have tried to delve into the HPC world have struggled with getting that demand. You're taking a unique approach, but what's your thought process in tackling that? And, how have you guys gone about it this far?
Yeah, I mean, I think the real reason why most crypto companies, especially miners, go with the HPC AI approach is just simply because of banking. And they want to be able to be banked. They want to be able to get loans, financing. And when you start to dig into the businesses, you realize that, okay, 95% or maybe 90% of your revenue or profit comes from your Bitcoin mining operation. Well, are you really an HPC company? So, I mean, that's been around, and HPC, it makes sense because it can be financed, it can be deployed at scale, but the networks aren't there. And this is, everyone's been focusing on AI and machine learning, but I think there's an opportunity if you're looking to go down that route to say, hey, we're a video transcoding platform. Oh, you understand how Netflix works? Okay, you understand how many people use Netflix? Yeah, we help Netflix. We sell to Netflix. And of course, Netflix isn't necessarily going to start buying from you immediately, but as these networks mature and progress, and you're able to show consistently that you're 30% cheaper than AWS, Netflix is going to trial you. That's going to happen, especially as these companies mature. So I think it's just people are going after the wrong computational, silo, you could say, and they need to be focused on something it's more practical today than machine learning and AI, which is still very ambiguous. And the big players, they have their own data centers. They have their own, $250,000, graphics cards or servers where they, install in their rack, and it's financed by Goldman. Like this is the game of Google and Facebook. You can't compete if you're a Bitcoin miner. One of their facilities is 10 times as big as yours, and then they have 100 of them.
God, the scale of those facilities, I mean, if you think about it, they have so much compute under management. I mean, they run everything. They run everything. They literally run everything. And, the downturn in the economy over the last 6 months is enormous. And when you think about the Jeff Bezos and the wealth that he has accrued in a time when everyone else is losing money, there's nothing sinister about it. He's just put himself in a position to own the business that is integral to everyone's daily life. And it's amazing. It is absolutely amazing. I find it incredibly fascinating. Speaking about large scale compute, have you done any research into Google's Stadia project?
Other than like getting their marketing material and understanding that they were making people pay for it, and it was a flop and didn't really work out as well as they thought it was, and that's about it.
Well, dude, they had so many GPUs, right? They had warehouses and warehouses and warehouses full of GPUs to support Stadia, and then it flopped. I want to know where those are. Like I've been trying to figure out like where did those go, because I bet they're being sold for a very, very steep discount. Oh man, I was hoping that you would know.
I've never even thought about that, but do they close it? Is it still up? Google Stadia? Do they turn it off?
No, I think it's still on. I think they're still trying to salvage it. It's just I don't know how they could compete with the other options that are out there. I mean, seems great, but I think it's probably 5 years too early. I think they were going for Ready Player One just a bit too soon. It's like if they would have launched, next year, maybe, depending on how bad COVID continues to get, but who knows? Well, man, look, I'm glad that we were able to chat and catch up. It's been a few months since you've been on, and hopefully a few months from now or 6 months from now, when you've got your retail product, I definitely want to have you on again to talk about that. But thank you for joining me on the show today.
Thanks again for having me. I appreciate it. And I'm glad you're able to support the community, continue to put out some great content for the miners. And it's always great to listen in.
Thanks, JP. I appreciate you. And to all the viewers and listeners out there, thank you guys for tuning into the HASHR8 podcast. We'll put all of JP's information in the show's notes. Be sure to head over to Mining Store, check them out. And until next time, we'll talk to you guys all again very soon. Thanks for watching this episode of HASHR8 Podcast, a HASHR8 TV production. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing for more great content like this every day of the week. In addition, feel free to leave a comment below and let us know who you'd like to see on the next episode of HASHR8 Podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Also, if you head over to hashrate.com, you can sign up for our free weekly newsletter, Difficulty Adjustment. Every Wednesday morning, we provide you with the latest news and information on Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and mining. Plus, each week, one newsletter subscriber will be selected at random to receive a free Ledger Nano S cryptocurrency wallet. So go ahead and sign up today. Who knows? You may be the next lucky winner. Want more from HASHR8? Follow HASHR8 TV on Twitter. It's the easiest way to keep track of our newest content all in one place. That's at HASHR8_TV. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you very soon. Please remember that all content appearing on this or any other HASHR8 channel is strictly for informational and entertainment purposes only. You should not construe any such information as legal, tax, investment, financial, or other advice. Consult a licensed financial advisor before investing yours or anyone else's money.